Traveling from all corners of Middle-earth to Rivendell, the 9 members of the Fellowship of the Ring sought out to destroy the One Ring in Mount Doom of Mordor. Together, they trekked through snowy passes, fought off many malevolent creatures, and laid down their lives for each other, cultivating bonds that would last for the rest of their lives. As many know, Frodo sails off to the Undying Lands after the War of the Ring, but what about the rest of the Fellowship? After the war concludes, the surviving characters return to a world that has been forever changed by the events of the war. Today, we will be discussing the fate of the members of the Fellowship, including brief character histories for those who may be less familiar. The Fellowship of the Ring is the first novel in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, referring to the company sent from Rivendell to destroy the Ring of Power at Mordor. The original company consisted of 4 hobbits, Frodo Baggins, Samwise Gamgee, Mariotic Brandybuck, and Pippin Took. 2 men, Aragorn and Boromir of Gondor, the Elven Prince Legolas, the wizard Gandalf, and the dwarf Gimli. These 9 companions of the free races of Middle-earth represented the balance against the 9 Nazgul, symbolizing the forces of good against the forces of evil. As many know, not everyone in the Fellowship survived past the War of the Ring. Boromir, son of Denethor, was shot to death by orcs, unfortunately, before he saw Sauron defeated and peace returned to Middle-earth. He was the eldest son of Denethor, the steward of Gondor, and the brother of Faramir. He was favored by his father, unlike his younger brother Faramir, who seemed to always be the source of disdain for their father. Despite this, Boromir and Faramir had a warm and close relationship. Boromir was a mighty warrior of strength and valor, determined to protect his kingdom of Gondor. Protecting Gondor had been his main reason as to why he joined the Fellowship, but his mind began to increasingly be consumed by thoughts of the ring and the building desire to take it for himself. The ring's temptation of Boromir came to a climax when he attempted to take the ring from Frodo by force, envisioning himself using the ring to defeat Sauron and lead his people into victory. When Frodo fled, he realized the gravity of what he had just done and wept remorsefully. He spent his final moments defending Merry and Pippin from the orcs, having been pierced by many arrows before he finally fell. Before he died, Aragorn found him, and he confessed to him about trying to take the ring, and he asked for forgiveness. He tells Aragorn that he would have followed him as his king. Aragorn is introduced into the story as Strider, a mysterious and somewhat aloof ranger and chieftain of the Dunedain. He was orphaned at a young age, having been raised in Rivendell by Elrond. He does not initially reveal his true name when he first meets the 4 hobbits at the Prancing Pony. Eventually, he is revealed to be the last heir to the throne of Gondor, with much of his story arc revolving around him becoming the leader he knows he is destined to be. As the story unfolds, Aragorn transforms from a mysterious ranger, preparing to one day rule, to the wise and beloved king of Gondor, who leads the army that helped defeat Sauron, finally establishing peace in Middle-earth. After defeating Sauron, Aragorn ascends to the throne of Gondor and Arnor as King Elessar, reclaiming the kingdom of men. His rule ushers in a new age of peace and prosperity, restoring the glory of Gondor. Aragorn marries Arwen, the Elven Princess, and they have a son. Aragorn rules for many years, and his reign is marked by justice, peace, and the healing of Middle-earth. Eventually, Aragorn passes away at the age of 210, having lived a full and prosperous life, and is succeeded by his son Eldarion. The wizard, Gandalf the Grey, was the original leader of the Fellowship. Gandalf is one of the 5 Istari sent to Middle-earth by the Valar in the Third Age. He spends many years as a sojourner, offering counsel and wisdom to many. He is known by many names, having been given the name Gandalf by the men of Arnor. He eventually meets and befriends the hobbits of the Shire, having noticed and admired the courage they possessed. He eventually recruits Bilbo Baggins in his quest to help the dwarf Thorin Oakenshield reclaim Erebor, the Lonely Mountain, and slay the dragon Smaug, who claimed the treasure of the mountain for himself. Eventually, Gandalf becomes the leader of the Fellowship on their quest to destroy the ring in Mordor. He battles the Balrog, living deep within the Misty Mountains. When the Balrog descends down the abyss, his whip flies around, wrapping around Gandalf and bringing him down with him. For 8 days he pursues the Balrog, having fought him for 2 days and 2 nights, ultimately slaying the Balrog. Gandalf's spirit leaves his body. He eventually transforms into Gandalf the White. After having played a key role in defeating Sauron, Gandalf's task on Middle-earth is complete. He helps usher in a new era of peace by ensuring Aragorn's coronation and crowning him as king, offering guidance and counsel. He then leaves with the rest of the Fellowship on their long journey home. He visits Tom Bombadil, and for a time, it is unclear what he exactly does. Eventually, he also sails to the Undying Lands with Frodo, leaving Middle-earth forever, as his mission there is complete. Frodo Baggins, the chosen ring-bearer of the story, starts his journey as a young hobbit, curious of the outside world. He lives with his maternal uncle, Goldfather Brandybuck, for a time before being adopted by Bilbo Baggins, whom he refers to as Uncle Bilbo, but is actually a cousin. When Bilbo leaves the Shire, Frodo inherits many of Bilbo's belongings, including the One Ring, which Bilbo finds in the tunnels of the Misty Mountains. Throughout the story, Frodo carries the burdensome weight that comes with being the bearer of the One Ring. After Boromir attempts to take the ring by force, Frodo leaves, fearing that the ring will destroy the rest of his friends if he stays. Intending to go to Mordor alone, he is intercepted by Sam, who refuses to let him go alone and promises to look after him and help him. For about 6 months, Sam and Frodo travel, ultimately making it to Mount Doom. By then, the pull of the ring had overcome Frodo, and at the last moment, he claims the ring as his own. Gollum attacks Frodo soon after, biting off his finger to get to the ring, but ultimately falls into the fire, destroying the ring and himself. Although Frodo plays a crucial role in the destruction of the One Ring, the aftermath of his journey is difficult for him. He returns to the Shire, but he is forever changed by the trauma of bearing the One Ring. Despite being hailed as a hero, he struggles with physical and psychological wounds from his journey, including his lingering wound from the Morgul blade. Unable to find peace in the Shire, Frodo eventually sails to the Undying Lands with Gandalf, Bilbo, and the elves, seeking healing and rest. He passes on the Red Book to Sam, for him to write his own stories and entries. Frodo's departure marks the end of his journey, and he leaves behind a legacy of bravery and sacrifice. We can't discuss Frodo's journey without discussing the hobbit Samwise Gamgee, Frodo's loyal companion, whom he wouldn't have gotten very far without. Sam is introduced as Frodo's gardener, who Gandalf appoints to be Frodo's companion. Through the story, Sam encapsulates deep loyalty to Frodo. He volunteers to go to Mount Doom with Frodo, knowing the risks, and defends him at every sign of threat they come across. Sam is the only member of the Fellowship to make it with Frodo to Mount Doom. He is universally known and beloved for his fierce loyalty to Frodo, highlighted when he carries him up the mountain. He is also one of the few that was able to surrender the ring voluntarily. After the War of the Ring, Sam returns home to the Shire, where he plays an important role in its healing after the Scouring. His deeds were rewarded, and his family was given the name of Gardener. He marries Rosie Cotton and raises a large family with her, having 13 children, finding happiness in his life after the war. As stated in Frodo's chapter, he inherits the Red Book of Westmarch from Bilbo and Frodo, continuing the tradition of recording the history of Middle-earth. After living a full life, he sails to the Undying Lands, where he is reunited with Frodo once again. The hobbit Meriadoc Brandybuck witnesses Bilbo become invisible, causing him to become very curious about what was going on. He discussed with Frodo's friends, including Sam and Pippin, about Bilbo's disappearance, believing that Frodo would follow after him. He and Pippin soon accompany Frodo and Sam to Rivendell. He insists to remain with Frodo on the quest of the ring, and with Pippin, becomes the 8th and 9th member of the Fellowship. After he and Pippin are taken by the Uruk-hai, they encounter the Ents, and are the first mortals in centuries to see them. Merry eventually meets King Theoden of Rohan, and offers his service out of love for him. Theoden forbids Merry to ride to Minas Tirith, but is offered by a rider named Durnhelm to bear him. He pierces the back of the Witch King's knee with the barrow blade, allowing for Durnhelm, who is revealed to be Éowyn, to thrust her blade into his head. After the War of the Ring, Merry Brandybuck returns to the Shire, and goes on to assume his role as Master of Buckland, overseeing the peaceful region along the Brandywine River. He becomes a respected leader, known for his bravery in the battle against the Witch King of Angmar, and is recognized for his pivotal role in the War of the Ring. Merry visits Gondor and is honored for his service, strengthening ties between the Shire and the wider world. He doesn't take on the title of Thane of the Shire, which goes to Pippin, but his influence in the Shire and Buckland remains significant. As he grows older, Merry enjoys a peaceful life, though he carries the memories of his grand adventure. He eventually goes to Gondor to spend his remaining years, with his body placed beside King Elessar's after he dies. Peregrine Took is the youngest of the 4 hobbits, beginning his journey as a close companion of his cousins Merry and Frodo. At the beginning of the story, he is a childish and carefree hobbit, often foolish, mischievous, and emotional. Eventually making it to Rivendell with the other hobbits, he is worried that he and Merry would be left behind from the quest to destroy the ring. With Gandalf believing his friendship with Frodo and the other hobbits would see to be beneficial, he is chosen to be part of the Fellowship. When he and Merry are taken by the Uruk-hai, he shows his resourcefulness by leaving behind his elven brooch from Lothlorien on the ground for Aragorn to find. After marching with the Ents to Isengard, he and Merry are reunited with the 3 hunters. He eventually arrives at Minas Tirith with Gandalf and pledges his allegiance to Denethor. During the Siege of Gondor, Pippin is instrumental in saving Faramir, who is set to be burned alive by his father. After the War of the Ring, Pippin is honored for his bravery during the war, particularly for his role in the Battle of Minas Tirith, and he becomes a Knight of Gondor. He returns to the Shire and becomes Thane, the leader of the Took family, after the death of his father Paladin. Though he continues to play an important role in the governance of the Shire, he remains connected to Gondor and is deeply respected for his service there. He marries a hobbit named Diamond of Longcleave and has at least 1 child with her, whom he names after Faramir of Gondor. In his later years, he and Merry move to Gondor where they die, and are placed by King Aragorn after his death. The son of Thranduil, king of the woodland elves, Legolas is the only member of the Fellowship of the elven race. He is a skilled archer and bowman, with keen eyes, often acting as the rearguard for the Fellowship. He is considered to be the most loyal and respectful to the leadership of the Fellowship, following them through unknown horrors and darkness. Along with his skills in combat, he is known for his loyalty and his cheerful, friendly personality. After the breaking of the Fellowship, he and Gimli stay with Aragorn, pursuing the Uruk-hai who have captured Merry and Pippin. The trio would soon be known as the 3 Hunters, a name given by Aragorn to the 3 of them. After the War of the Ring, and works with Gimli and the dwarves to rebuild Minas Tirith. He and Gimli spend some time traveling, going to places including the Glittering Caves, where Gimli eventually settles. After the death of Aragorn, Legolas builds a grey ship and he sails into the west, taking Gimli with him. Gimli's story is greatly entwined with Legolas's. Both Gimli and Legolas's character arcs are highly connected with each other due to the ancient conflict and animosity between elves and dwarves. Gimli is a dwarf of the House of Durin, who is the only representative of dwarves in the Fellowship. He was born in the Blue Mountains during the time in which Durin's folk, one of the 7 kindreds of dwarves, were in exile. His father Gloin was part of Thorin's company to reclaim Erebor, which they returned after the quest's success. He is known for his great strength and stamina, and carrying a broad-bladed axe. His personality is stubborn and ill-tempered, but he is also loyal and kind. His relationship with Legolas began as contemptuous, but starts to develop into a close relationship, unheard of between a dwarf and an elf for centuries. After the War of the Ring, Gimli and Legolas journey to many places, including the Glittering Caves, where he settles and becomes Lord. He rebuilds the gates of Minas Tirith with mithril and steel, and also helps rebuild Rohan. He eventually sails to the Undying Lands with Legolas, becoming the first and only dwarf to do so. Each member of the Fellowship played a significant role in the defeat of Sauron and restoring Middle-earth. While the 8 remaining members all had their own unique paths after the war, they each went on to continue living meaningful lives. The bonds they formed during their journey together proved to stand the test of time, with many of them reuniting with each other or staying with each other after the War of the Ring. What characters would you like to hear more about? Let me know in the comments below.